$30. 3 days. That's all I'm asking. Adam Kohler stopped mopping mid-stroke, dirty water sloshing against the bucket. The girl standing in front of him couldn't have been more than 10. She had on a jacket 2 sizes too big, her backpack half-zipped and dragging, and her shoes didn't match. But what stopped him wasn't the way she looked, it was the way she stared, dead in the eye, like someone who'd already heard too many no's to care about one more. She reached out her hand, clutching crumpled bills and coins like they were sacred. "I don't need a full-time dad," she added, voice calm. "Just one for this week." Adam blinked, unsure if this was some prank or setup. He looked around the empty hallway, janitor keys jingling softly at his waist. "Kid, what are you even talking about?" She sighed like she'd had to explain this more times than a child should. "School stuff. They're having these meetings with parents. Real parents. I've been making up stories, saying my dad works night shifts, overseas, whatever. But now someone's asking questions. If no one shows up Friday, they'll move me again. Somewhere with rules and bunk beds, and people who smile too wide." She paused. "You kind of look like the guy I draw in my notebook. That's why I picked you." For a moment, Adam didn't say anything. He just stared at her. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a drawing-lined notebook paper, pencil sketch of a tall man with a flannel shirt and big hands, holding the hand of a small girl. "That's my dad," she said simply. "The one I made up." Adam looked down at his own flannel, his rough hands. The resemblance wasn't perfect, but it was enough to sting. "What's your name?" he asked. "Katie. Katie Reinhardt." She held her chin up like it was all just business. Adam sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "I've got my own kid, you know. A son. Lives with his aunt. It's complicated." Katie shrugged. "This doesn't have to be. 3 days. Then we're even." Something in the way she said it made him pause. She wasn't begging. She wasn't crying. It was the tone that caught him like someone who'd stopped expecting help but had learned to ask anyway, just in case. Adam had no business getting involved. He was just a guy who cleaned floors, missed his kid, and didn't even return calls from his sister anymore. But this girl, standing here with her scraped-up backpack and impossible confidence, was offering him something strange. Not a scam, not a joke, a chance. And maybe that's what scared him the most. "All right," he said finally. 3 days. But I don't do hugs, bedtime stories, or anything with glitter." Katie smiled for the first time. "Deal." The next morning, Adam found himself walking through the doors of a school for the first time in years hand in hand with a kid who technically wasn't his. She guided him like a tour guide on a mission. "Don't say anything weird," she warned, "and try to look like you care." Adam scoffed. "You're the one who hired me, remember?" But truth be told, he felt like a fraud. His shirt was clean, but it still smelled faintly like bleach. His boots thudded on the polished floors like they didn't belong. They reached the classroom just as a teacher tall, glasses, hair pulled back too tight, turned to greet them. "You must be Katie's father," she said, clearly not buying it. Adam gave a short nod, feeling the weight of Katie's hand tighten in his. "Yeah," he said, "I'm here." And even though every instinct told him to run, he stayed. Because sometimes, showing up is the only thing that matters. The classroom smelled like dry erase markers and old carpet, the kind of place where time seemed stuck between math tests and lunch bells. Adam sat awkwardly in a too-small chair while the teacher, Ms. Becker, spoke about Katie's performance. "She's smart, quick with numbers. Writes like someone twice her age," she said, flipping through papers. "But she's distant. Doesn't play much with the other kids. Always looks like she's waiting for something." Adam didn't know how to respond to that. He glanced at Katie beside him. She was staring at her shoes, tapping her fingers against her knee like she wanted this to be over yesterday. "We're working on that," he said finally, and it came out more honest than he meant it to. After the meeting, as they walked through the hallway lined with crooked art projects and cheesy motivational posters, Adam noticed a man in a charcoal blazer watching them. Not a teacher, not a parent either. Something about the way he stood too still, too formal made Adam's neck tense. "You know that guy?" he asked, nudging Katie. She glanced over her shoulder and quickly looked away. "Nope," she said too fast. "Just someone from the district, probably." But the way her voice dipped, the way her shoulders stiffened, it wasn't just probably. Adam didn't push. Not yet. But something was off. That afternoon, Katie was quiet. Too quiet. They sat at a diner with chipped mugs and laminated menus sticky at the edges. She poked at her grilled cheese like it had wronged her. You said you had a son, she muttered finally. Adam nodded. Yeah, 10. Dylan. Lives with my sister. You see him? She asked. He took a sip of his coffee before answering. Used to. Not lately. She didn't ask why, just went back to her sandwich. Adam watched her, realizing that this kid who hired him to be a pretend dad was carrying more than just a social worker's threat. There were bruises you couldn't see, and she had a full collection. They walked home after sunset, the kind of dark that makes even safe streets feel thin. Katie led him to a cramped apartment complex. 3rd floor, no elevator. Inside, the place was clean but bare. One lamp, one mattress on the floor, a sketch pad and a duffel bag in the corner. That was it. Adam looked around, confused. This is your place? Katie nodded like it was nothing. My grandma's. She passed last month. No one's come to check, yet. I keep the lights low and the neighbors think she's just sick or something. Adam turned slowly. You've been living here. Alone. Katie folded her arms, suddenly small but stubborn. I've done okay. Before he could speak, there was a knock. Not loud, but sharp. Measured. Katie froze. Her entire body locked up. Don't answer, she whispered. Adam moved to the door anyway, cautious. Through the peephole, he saw the man in the blazer. The same one from school. He turned the handle slowly, opening just a crack. Can I help you? He asked. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Adam Kohler, right? I'm Martin Hale. Child Welfare Services. He flashed a badge like it was meant to shut people up. Mind if I come in? Adam stepped into the hallway and shut the door behind him. Actually, he said, keeping his voice level, I do mind. Martin Hale didn't flinch when Adam shut the door behind him. He just adjusted his collar and took a slow breath, like he'd done this 100 times before. You understand this is a legal matter, Mr. Kohler. Harboring a minor without proper guardianship is a serious offense. Adam crossed his arms. She's not a stray cat. She's a kid, and she asked for help. Hale smiled thinly. That may be true, but the law doesn't bend for emotional appeal. He reached into his coat, pulled out a manila folder. I've received anonymous reports. This girl has no active guardian. Her grandmother died. No next of kin. That puts her under state jurisdiction. Adam's jaw clenched. He didn't trust people who used words like jurisdiction when talking about children. Inside the apartment, Katie stood frozen by the door, pressing her ear to the wood. She couldn't hear much, just muffled voices and the low thrum of tension. She turned away, heart pounding like it was trying to escape. She'd been through this before. Social workers who said they cared. Foster homes that smelled like bleach and rules. People who came in with clipboards and left with promises they never meant to keep. But Adam, he'd shown up. He hadn't run when she told him the truth. And right now, she was terrified he might. Back in the hallway, Adam kept his stance firm. If you're here to do a wellness check, fine. But you're not dragging her out of here tonight. Hale raised a brow. And what gives you the authority to decide that? Adam's voice was low. Nothing. Except the fact I'm the only one who's been here. Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. Finally, Hale closed the folder and tucked it away. You have 48 hours, he said, voice clipped. Then I'll be back. With paperwork. And just like that, he turned and walked down the stairs without looking back. Adam re-entered the apartment, locking the door behind him. Katie hadn't moved from her spot. You okay? He asked. She nodded too quickly. He's gonna take me, isn't he? She asked, not meeting his eyes. Adam walked over, kneeling to her height. Not if I can help it. Katie looked at him for a long time, trying to decide whether or not to believe him. She was used to people meaning well for about 5 minutes. But Adam's face was different. Tired, yeah? A little lost, definitely. But there was something else. Something stubborn. She gave a single nod and said, Then we've got 2 days to figure out how to disappear. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen counter with a cold cup of coffee and an old photo in his hand. His son Dylan, maybe 4 years old, grinning up at the camera with ice cream on his face. He'd missed every birthday since then. Hadn't been back to that town since the custody hearing. He'd messed up a lot of things. But maybe this time he could get something right. In the dim light, Katie had fallen asleep on the mattress with her sketchbook on her chest. Adam walked over, gently pulled a blanket over her. One corner of the sketch pad was flipped open. On the page, a drawing of 2 people holding hands, one tall, one small. Above it, in shaky pencil, Don't leave. Adam exhaled slowly, then whispered, I won't. The next morning came heavy and slow, like the world had to be convinced to wake up. Adam stood by the stove, frying eggs in a dented pan, while Katie brushed her teeth in the kitchen sink. Her toothbrush had clearly seen better days, but she didn't complain. She never did. She moved like someone who didn't want to be noticed, too much quiet, light-footed, always one step from running. Adam made 2 plates, placed one on the table. "We've got about 40 hours until Mr. Government Blazer comes back," he said. "We need a plan." Katie shrugged, biting into a piece of toast. "We could run." Adam raised an eyebrow. "And go where?" She didn't answer. He already knew. It didn't matter. Kids like her weren't running toward anything, they were just running from. "We're not going anywhere. We're going to make them see what's real," he said. She looked up, eyes cautious. "And if they don't?" Adam stared at her a beat longer. "Then we fight like hell." Around noon, Adam borrowed a friend's truck, barely running, but still faster than Hale's paperwork. They stopped at a community center, a little red building with peeling paint and a mural of handprints that had long since faded into ghost shapes. Inside, Ruby, an old friend, the kind of person who didn't need an explanation to offer a couch and a grilled cheese. "You look like hell," she told Adam, not unkindly. "And the girl?" Ruby knelt down to Katie's eye level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Katie hesitated, glancing at Adam before answering. "Katie," she said softly. Ruby gave a small nod. "Well, Katie, we got 3 kinds of soup and 1 chair that's only mildly broken. You just won the lottery." Katie cracked a tiny smile. It was the first one in days that wasn't practiced. Later that day, Adam made calls. To lawyers, to social workers he trusted, to the school. He asked for letters, proof that he was doing right by her, even if no one had given him permission to. He talked to a local volunteer coordinator about mentoring, just to have something on paper. He even dug up old tax records, dusty ID cards, anything to show that he wasn't a ghost, wasn't a stranger. Meanwhile, Katie sat with Ruby, helping cut vegetables in the kitchen and asking surprisingly thoughtful questions about soup ratios and spices. Ruby, who never had children of her own, listened like every word was gold. That night, they ate together, real food, real conversation, and something about it felt dangerous, like hope was knocking. And hope, Katie had learned, was the cruelest trick of all if it didn't stay. As the sky darkened, the front door creaked open and a tall man in a windbreaker stepped inside. Adam froze mid-conversation. It wasn't Hale. Worse, it was Darren, the landlord of Katie's grandmother's building. "I stopped by the unit today," he said, arms crossed. "Found her sketchpad on the floor. Place is dark, quiet. Called the cops, then remembered I saw you leaving with some kid the other day." Adam tensed. "What's your point?" Darren sneered. "My point is I don't want my name on any mess. If she's in your custody illegally, and something happens, guess who gets sued?" Ruby stepped forward fast and firm. "That girl has seen more of life than most people twice her age, and she doesn't need your weak threats on top of it." Darren backed off, but not before muttering, "You've got 24 hours. Get your story straight." He left without waiting for a response. Ruby locked the door behind him, muttering something under her breath that Katie probably wasn't supposed to hear but definitely did. That night, Katie couldn't sleep. Again, she lay on the fold-out couch, blanket up to her chin, listening to the grown-ups whispering in the kitchen. Adam's voice was low but serious. "He's not bluffing. If someone calls the agency again, it's over." Ruby replied. "Then you'd better make your move fast. This system doesn't wait for good intentions." Katie sat up, staring into the dark, the glow of the hallway light just barely reaching her feet. She got up, quietly walked to the table, and placed something next to Adam's coffee cup. It was a sealed envelope. On the front, in shaky block letters, "If they take me, read this." Then she turned, climbed back into bed, and faced the wall. Adam stared at the envelope for a long, breathless minute. He didn't open it. He didn't have to, because deep down, something in him shifted. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking him to stay. The next morning broke cold and gray, sky hanging low like it knew what was coming. Adam woke up before anyone else, sat at the kitchen table with the unopened envelope still where Katie had left it. He hadn't touched it, hadn't even looked at it too long. Something about it felt final, like a goodbye with tape on the edges. He reached for it, then stopped. Instead, he stood up, made coffee, and started preparing for war. Because today wasn't going to be about talking. It was going to be about proof. about showing the world that love without permission still mattered. Ruby had made calls all night. 2 teachers agreed to testify. A neighbor from Katie's old apartment agreed to write a letter. Even the school counselor, a quiet woman with tired eyes, said she'd show up if needed. By 9 a.m., Adam had a folder thick enough to matter. Hopefully, Katie watched him pack it like he was going to court. And maybe, in a way, he was. She didn't say much that morning, just sat at the table with her sketchpad and a mug of warm milk Ruby had made. She was drawing again, this time slower, more carefully. Adam glanced at the paper. 3 people again. 2 adults, 1 kid. But this time the adults weren't holding her hands, they were behind her. Like a wall. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer, just kept coloring in the sky. "You ready for this?" he asked. Still nothing. Then, without looking up, she said, "He was outside last night." Adam stiffened. "Who?" "The guy from the hallway. Martin Hale. He was in a car, watching the house." Adam stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Why didn't you tell me?" Katie shrugged. "Because I knew you'd stay. I just wasn't sure if I'd let myself believe it." By the time they reached the social services office, the air felt like glass, brittle, tense, ready to shatter. The waiting room was all plastic chairs and faded posters about child wellness. Katie sat on the edge of one, swinging her legs, pretending she wasn't watching the clock. Adam filled out forms with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Then Martin Hale stepped out of a back room, clipboard in hand, fake smile in place. "Mr. Kohler, Miss Reinhardt, we're ready for you." Inside the meeting room, 2 other people sat at the table, one middle-aged woman with a gentle face, one younger man in a cheap suit trying to look important. Hale gestured to the seats. "We're here to determine the next steps for Katie's safety and legal placement," he began. "Mr. Kohler, we understand you've been assisting temporarily, but that ends today." Adam didn't sit. He placed the folder on the table and opened it like a final move in a poker game. "These are letters from her school, from her teachers, from the woman who's kept a roof over her head. There's even a notarized statement from her neighbor confirming Katie has lived alone for weeks until I stepped in. So if you're going to tell me I don't qualify, go ahead. But don't pretend she was better off before." Hale didn't flinch, but the woman beside him, the older one, looked over the documents slowly. The room was quiet, only the rustle of paper breaking it. Then Katie stood. Everyone turned. "I have something too," she said, pulling her sketchbook from her bag. She flipped to the page she'd drawn this morning and slid it onto the table. "I know it's not legal or anything, but that's how it feels." The woman leaned forward. "Can you explain the drawing, Katie?" Katie nodded, voice soft but steady. "Those are the people who don't leave. I don't know what kind of rules you need, but if you want to know who makes me feel safe, it's them. They don't ask for anything back. They just stay." Hale leaned back, unimpressed. "We still have procedures. We don't base placement decisions on crayon drawings." "No," Adam said, stepping in. "You base them on risk, on paperwork, on who checks what box. But you forget something." He looked directly at him. "These boxes don't raise children. People do." The silence was electric. Then the door opened and someone else walked in. A woman, well-dressed, out of breath, holding a stack of papers. Katie's eyes widened. "Wait, who is that?" The woman in the doorway caught her breath, then stepped forward with calm but urgency in her voice. "My name is Elena Hartmann," she said. "I'm here on behalf of Katie Reinhardt's biological file." Martin Hale stood, clearly irritated. "You're not on the schedule." Elena barely glanced at him. "I was called by Ms. Ruby Lennox. She said there were questions about what's best for this child. I have documentation that's been sealed for years, hospital records, custody logs, and one additional letter. From Katie's mother." The older woman at the table gestured her in. "Let's hear it." Katie sat frozen, her hands in her lap, eyes wide but unreadable. Adam instinctively rested a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he whispered. She didn't nod. She didn't speak. She just stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Elena placed the letter on the table and unfolded it gently, like something sacred. Her voice softened. "It's dated 9 years ago. It says, 'To whoever finds her, Katie is smart. She's kind. She loves stories, and she always sleeps facing the wall when she's scared. I can't be the mother she needs, but I hope someone better than me will be. Please don't let her believe she was unwanted. She wasn't. I just couldn't stay." Her voice cracked at the last line. Signed, LR. The room was still. Even Hale didn't speak. Adam felt his chest tighten, like something sharp had wedged between his ribs. Katie blinked hard. She left that. Elena nodded slowly. She left it with the nurse. But the nurse was new. It got lost in her files. No one ever saw it. The older woman at the table looked at Katie. Do you want to know more about her? Katie opened her mouth, then closed it. Then finally, maybe one day. But not right now. She looked up at Adam, eyes glassy. Right now, I just want to know if I get to stay. The younger man in the suit shifted uncomfortably. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then the older woman spoke. Given the presented evidence, letters of character, the child's clear emotional bond, and the lack of any alternate guardian stepping forward, I'm prepared to recommend a provisional placement with Mr. Adam Kohler under supervision for 3 months. If all goes well, full guardianship can be petitioned after that. Hale started to protest, but she shut him down with a look. The paperwork's valid. The risk is low, and the girl deserves stability, not limbo. Adam exhaled, then slumped back in the chair like someone who'd been holding up a building with his back. Katie turned to him, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then she whispered, "You're not just staying for 3 days anymore, are you?" He shook his head. "Not if you'll keep me." She grinned through watery eyes. "Okay then, I guess I'll stop paying you." He chuckled. "I was never in it for the money." The older woman smiled faintly. That's usually how the good ones start. On their way out, Ruby was waiting in the hallway, holding a ridiculous, oversized balloon that read, "You did it." Katie ran straight to her, burying her face into Ruby's side. "Can we go home now?" Ruby kissed the top of her head. "Sweetheart, you've been home since you walked into my kitchen asking for seconds." That night, they sat around Ruby's small living room. Adam, Katie, Ruby, and even Elena eating leftover lasagna and telling bad jokes. Katie had changed into pajamas with mismatched socks and was doodling quietly beside the couch. She held up a fresh drawing, this one more colorful, more detailed. It showed a tiny house with sunflowers, 3 people on the porch, and a banner over the door that read, "We stay." Adam looked at it, then at her. "Can I keep that one?" Katie nodded. "But only if you frame it." He smiled. "Deal." Later, when the dishes were done and the lights were low, Katie crawled up beside him on the couch and whispered, "I never really believed it would work. That someone would pick me and actually stay." Adam put his arm around her, pulled her close. "Well, now you've got a contract. No quitting allowed." She smiled into his chest. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere either." If this story stayed with you even just a little, consider subscribing. Sometimes, the world needs reminders that love isn't always loud, and family doesn't always look the way we expect. Here, we tell stories about second chances, chosen bonds, and the quiet kind of hope that refuses to quit. So if you believe in that kind of storytelling, stick around. There's more where this came from.